Are you ready to untangle from your past, recover from heartbreak, and revive your life? This is Soul CPR with your host, Ann Papayotti. We've all had soul-crushing experiences and lost ourselves in our pain, but there is a way out. On this podcast, Amazon best-selling author, award-winning life coach, and advice columnist Ann Papayotti helps us navigate the path from heartbreak to healing. So now, please welcome the host of Soul CPR, Ann Papayotti.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Soul CPR. I'm so very glad you're here with me, whether it's the first time or you've been with me many times. As you can see, I'm back in my home office, straight off a vacation from Hawaii, where I had such a wonderful time. And I've had so many people asking me what was my favorite adventure. And I have to start with just saying being there. Being there was truly soul CPR for me and for my family as well. And I'd like to start by just correcting my pronunciation of the town that was devastated by fire on the island of Maui. I was saying Lahaina, I believe, and it's Lahaina. So my apologies to anyone familiar with the area. It is Lahaina. But some of my favorite adventures truly start with just supporting the return of tourism to the island of Maui, because that is, a primary means of income for so many of the islanders. And the people are certainly one of my favorite takeaways and bring home memories. We're just meeting the people, learning their stories, many people who have immigrated there from the mainland and why they've stayed. And it's just really beautiful to learn all of that. Other adventures, I would have to say, the day after I did the podcast locally, we went snorkeling. And the waters are so shallow near the shore, and yet the coral is right there that you don't even have to dive unless you're a diver, which I'm not. But the snorkeling was amazing. The coral reefs, saw so many phenomenal varieties of fish, eel, octopus, starfish, and my favorite, swimming with the sea turtles. That was fabulous, I have to say. Um, the whale watching just from the shoreline this time of year, the humpback whale are there. So that was just, you could just sit there on the shore and have a show, if you will. So that was amazing. And then we traveled on to Oahu, the island of Oahu, and what was really important for me there was to visit Pearl Harbor, to honor all who served, but in particular, my father, who dropped out of high school at the age of 17 after the attack, as many young men did, to join the Navy. So that was humbling and emotional, that tour. And I was proud to have two of my sons with me there. We also toured the highlights of the big city of Honolulu. That was pretty incredible. I learned a lot that I did not know about that city. And then we had an amazing luau near the beach and fireworks and lots of Mai Tais, I have to say, my new favorite cocktail. So all wonderful things. We also hiked Diamond Head Volcano, which gave us a phenomenal view of Waikiki and Honolulu. So if I haven't sounded like a travel agent yet and convinced you to go, please do. It is good for the soul. Now, with that, today we are going to be talking about, I'm going to have a very special conversation with a special person to me about BS, all that BS that we deal with every day and how to make shift happen. This special person is a friend. She's also a coach. Therefore she's a colleague. She's also the co-author of The Gift of Shift. She's someone I call Sunshine, and you will soon understand why. Tracy McDonald. Welcome, Tracy, to the show.
Thank you so much, Anne, for having me. I love your necklace. I know for some people who can't see it, it's a starfish. I'm like, how perfect, coming back from Hawaii and wearing a starfish necklace. But yes, thank you so much for having me today.
I'm so happy that you're here with me. And And as you know, this topic for both of us is so important, this BS that we all talk about. But before we go into that, I just really kind of want to share with the listeners and the viewers about how we met and came to even write this book. So it's interesting because these two girls who you're Canadian, I was living in Canada, met in Miami. You want to tell them a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, actually, we were living there at the time, my husband and I, and so it was the right spot. Actually, talking about synchronicities and coincidences right from our first chapter of the book, one of the was that it was such a strong pull to go to Miami, and thank goodness we lived there, because that wasn't necessarily the coach training I was going to go to. And then to meet you, Anne, on the very first day, as soon as we walk into that classroom, I mean, let's face it, it was an instant connection right off the bat. And just, I mean, how we became friends right from that point on.
We did. And the audio may have cut out a little bit there, but as Tracy was saying, we met in Miami our first day of coach training. This is now what, 9 years ago, Tracy? It's been a minute. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember walking into that room and feeling a little bit overwhelmed. And I just saw Tracy and I went and sat near her. I was like just drawn to her. It was like a magnetic attraction. And she turned around and she's like, hi. And it's like, it was just perfect. And she's been sunshine to me ever since. And we were connected. It was a year-long training. It was spread out over quarters, right, for the live trainings. And being that, I believe you moved back to Canada during that year, did you not?
Yes, exactly. Moved back to Canada. And so I took my second module in Toronto and then back in Miami for mod 3. And I mean, us Canadian gals, when most people were at the buffet, where were we? By the pool, soaking up the sunshine and
That's
hanging out.
right.
I love
That's
it.
right. I was living in Montreal at the time. And of course, I chose Miami for the very reason of sun and sea. And so, yes, we would sit outside by the pool with our feet in the water. Everybody else was inside, with fans and air conditioning, eating lunch. And we would sit out and talk and talk and talk. And I think we knew then we would work together one day. We said, we'll figure this out. And we
Yeah.
did. And we eventually co-created workshops together. And you ended up back in New Brunswick, and I would fly there. We would facilitate there. You would fly to Montreal. We'd facilitate there. And our very first workshop we created was titled The Gift of Shift. We did
Yes.
not know then it would become a book, and it's very different from the workshop, but it did. But getting to the book, what would you say was your greatest challenge in writing the book?
I would say the greatest challenge, probably two challenges. One was, I mean, one of the things we agreed upon was keeping the stories short and really to the point. One of the challenges I would say would be I want to share so much, and even with the science and all of that, so cutting it back. I would say the number one challenge was the vulnerability. I would say that was a big challenge of sharing. I mean, these are intimate stories for both of us, and letting people into our lives that way. That was challenging.
Absolutely. And for those, I've talked about the book on previous episodes and shared a bit about our writing the book. But for those who may this be their first time to hear about it, the book is a collection of short, personal, intimate stories, as Tracy was saying. And we took 12 common life themes and wrote a short personal story, 6 for Tracy, 6 for me. And then we ask 5 coaching style questions after the story for the reader to then reflect on how this theme has played out in their lives so they can tap into their own inner wisdom, recognize how they may be beyond it, but recognize the strengths from that experience that they may use now, or possibly recognize how they still may be stuck and help them tap into their own inner wisdom to move through it. So what was the most difficult out of your 6 chapters, would you say, for you to have written in this book?
I would say probably the gift of breaking free would be the most difficult. Again, I think because of the vulnerability around it. Definitely that would be. And at the same time, it was probably one of the easiest. Inspiration hit me in the middle of the night, and away I went. It just came flowing out of me. So I would say there was a bit of both, right? Most challenging and also the easiest.
Yeah, I get that. For me, it was the gift of JOMO, the joy of missing out. I think it was because of the timing, because that was it's not the last chapter of mine in the book, but it was the last chapter I actually penned, if you will. And it's because it was during that COVID had happened. We started the book prior to COVID in 2020.
Yes.
We published during it. But this book was really, or this chapter was really trying to tap into the common experience everybody was having. And so I think I felt the weight of conveying that. But I was struggling what to choose for my sixth chapter. And it was something you said to me that sparked that. You said, what about that story you've told me before about starting over when you gave up your career and moved to Montreal? And
Yeah.
all the vulnerability you had to actually, do that after having going through divorce and being independent and all of those things. And so that's what actually on that chapter, but the fear of missing out, joy of missing out, and trying to now recognize the world was sort of experiencing a lot of that. So that was the most difficult for me. You keep talking about the vulnerability of writing. We both talk about a lot of the things that are in our stories in private coaching sessions, right? Or even in speaking engagements or in delivering workshops. But there's something about writing it, putting it in writing, putting it out on the World Wide Web, putting it out, for people to buy and purchase and see and review and rate. It's a different vulnerability, isn't it?
Absolutely. And also, if you're in a workshop, you can hear people's perspective and also explain your point of view, maybe if it was taken the wrong way. And
Yeah.
as you said, there's a whole next level of judgment that can come from that as well, or misinterpretation too.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. Absolutely. And so, other than the challenges, there's also been the rewards of having written the book. What do you think has been the greatest reward for you in having written and published The Gift of Shift?
I think the feedback. I mean, some of the feedback that we've heard from people. I mean, that's over the moon rewarding. I would say the second thing too, it was rewarding for me because I always said that I could never be an author. So I broke through one of my belief systems when I had a finishing product. So those were two huge rewards. Obviously, number one, hearing the feedback from other, readers and what they've actually gained from the stories, but also personally, just to break through such a huge belief that I could never be an author.
Yeah, we're going to tap back into that in a minute. I want to echo you in saying that the feedback has been amazing, especially when someone comes to one of us and says, I saw myself in your story. I heard my truth in yours. And it helped me release something I've held on to for years. I had one person say for decades. That's when you and I said at the beginning, if it only helps one person, it was worth it, right? And so we both know it's helped many more than one. And that was our goal, reach a wider audience than we could alone or in our individual offices or in the workshops we were doing. It was just a way to reach a wider audience. So I think we have met that goal, and we hope that it will continue to reach more and more people. And by doing things like this today, we're hopefully reaching more people who are unaware of it and have the opportunity to reach them. The fact that you just said, you broke through a belief system, maybe a limiting belief, we would call that you didn't think you could be an author. And here you were. And I saw you as you were already creating content. You were like a video queen. You had Tuesdays with Tracy that you still continue to this day. You post a video every Tuesday on all your social platforms. And we'll put up her information at the end of the show. It'll be in the show notes for anyone to connect with Tracy. And so I saw her content creators. Of course, she can write. I saw no limitation with Tracy. And I kept saying, we should write a book. And she's like, yeah, no, I'm not a writer. I'm like,
I'm
Tracy,
not
you
a
should write a
writer.
book. And I'm someone who, since I was 17, saw myself as a writer, wanted to write a book, but didn't feel good enough to do it. I'd start and I'd put it away. I'd start and I'd put it away. And I probably still would not have a book if not for Tracy, because I probably still, through self judgment, put it away and not submit anything. I always thought it'd be a novel, but life took me down a different path. And here we are in the genre of personal development, self help. With that, it's time for a short break. But when we come back, we were going to start talking about all this BS, those belief systems, right, Tracy? And we'll have, yeah. So don't go far. We'll be back in a heartbeat with more Soul CPR.
Mike Zorek, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a six-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorek, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorek has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back to Soul CPR, where today I have with me my very special guest, Tracy McDonald, who's not only a friend and a coaching colleague, but also the co-author of The Gift of Shift. And we've been talking about, how we met and how we came to work together and co-create, even though we've never lived in the same city and we haven't seen each other in many years. Tracy, we have to get together and celebrate this little thing we created, The Gift of Shift, that we both adore and love and have had wonderful feedback about. And we were sharing with the audience that it's a collection of 12 short stories. So we didn't get to, of course, go into great detail, because one reason we did it this way was because we did have input from people that they found many self-help books to be overly academic, too overwhelming, never getting to the how-to. And you and I agreed that the power of the personal story, right? And that's something we found people saying, I heard my truth, or I could relate, or it mirrored something that I understood. And then the questions helped me apply it to my life. So that's why it's structured the way it is, and maybe why we don't overshare, but enough for people to understand our experience with something. But as we were laying out the structure, we each had the 6 stories. This particular story of Tracy's, The Gift of Instinct, we decided had to be first, because it's about beliefs. And beliefs and understanding what you believe ends up being sort of a recurring theme behind the theme of each story. So, Tracy, kick us off with this first chapter of the book, The Gift of Instinct. And does it have anything to do with the band?
It has nothing to do with the band, and yeah, it really has to do more with synchronicities and coincidences. And you just said it. What's the belief around that? Do you believe in connecting to something more? Are you open to the signs? Are you open to, again, just to noticing life? Or is it more, do you brush things off and just consider it random events? It's just coincidences. And one of the things, that's how for myself in that story, was I had to drop the tug of war between, oh, it's just a coincidence, or is this something more? Is it a sign? And in order to do that, I had to just say coincidence, maybe, which we kind of built on that. And also, it really was building on how much that actually opened up to connecting to more, to noticing more, in order to drop the what it needs to look like, or having to have a definitive answer for that.
Yeah. And how did that dropping that need to know really help you get more in touch with your intuition, do you believe?
You know what? If you have you heard of Richard Schwartz? He does parts systems, internal family system. So he talks about different parts. So literally, there was a part of me that was very much driven into science, and would have believed more on, oh, it's just a random event, versus the spiritual side of knowing that there's signs. So by not having to identify with either parts, it's kind of like when I say that, if you ever make a decision, a part of me wants to do this and a part of me wants to do that, right? It's kind of like that tug of war. So by dropping it, meaning that there had to be no agreement necessarily, it just allowed for that awareness to come in even more so. It just allowed me to connect more to that authentic place, and just notice, which then kind of reinforced the belief, but also it reinforced the belief that I could believe both, right? That I can in both. And it did. And that's exactly how it happened.
I love that. I love the just a coincidence, maybe. And our readers will recognize that line in the book over and over again, because it is that possibility. And I love the word noticing, just noticing life. And the woman who wrote the foreword to our book talks about that's one thing that we tried to do here, is just open the reader's eyes to noticing their life, and to be able to then recognize they have choice. And even in that, you're saying you have choice. You can believe either way, or you can believe both. That's what I just heard you say. You have that choice, and we forget we have that power of choice in our lives, and we give that away. So in this first chapter, you share a lovely story, a special story, actually, very poignant story. Can you give us a little bit of that and give the readers something from that?
Yes. So with the synchronicities and coincidence, when my father-in-law passed away with pancreatic cancer, Alan and I, my husband, we were living in Florida at the time, and we had absolutely no idea. It was like a bomb that, was dropped on us, because about 2.5 months before that, he was in Florida with us, doing all Disney, enjoying everything. So it was literally like a bomb that was dropped on us when we heard that diagnosis. And to know that when we flew back to Canada, and, just what led to me having the most special, deep, meaningful conversation with him, all the coincidences maybe that led up to that, and just even with his passing, how just dropping, again, just having that, being open to the signs and noticing life, right, of everything that was even presented in those moments, and just even connecting to the love and peace that was in that room, even when he was still with us. I mean, there was something so special about the whole experience. And I'm not talking about when he passed. I mean, that was brutal, and it was unbearable to witness. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying about connecting to something so much more, and just noticing life and all the synchronicities that align with that and connecting to even feeling the energy in the room. And I mean, I could go on and on, but there was something very special, right down to my husband wearing his father's shoes, you know, on the day of his eulogy, which gave him strength, which he could always find shoes, no problem. You know, I mean, again, for readers, if you read the story, that will make more sense. But there's something, again, about when you notice life, you will begin to see signs and just connect to something more.
Yeah, it really is a special story, and the fact that Tracy ended up with this special private time with her father-in-law because of really an accidental, a forgetful thing. And so it really is special. So I hope you all will take the opportunity to read the story and embrace that. So starting the book with this story, as I said, was so people would just start noticing and paying attention that we do have belief systems. We have a belief. And here you are opening people the possibility that maybe there is another way to look at things or to believe, and starting with that chapter. And we don't even really mention that again. We don't really mention beliefs again, but just the fact it's an underlying subconscious theme throughout the book. So what is all this BS? What is all the BS? What is all the BS that you and I and all our listeners and viewers have going on every day? What would you call it?
Yeah, and I think that that's exactly it. It's a belief system that we have, you know, what we believe to be true. And just because we believe to be true doesn't mean that it is. But most times we never stop to question our beliefs, and a lot of times they can really limit us. They really can. And when you start doing the inner work, you really are surprised of how many limiting beliefs or BS stories we tell ourselves that really takes us away from really stepping into our full potential. And there's ones that really support us and move us forward. So it's to recognize and really get clear on, how does your beliefs serve you, and taking the time to actually
Right.
explore that.
Yeah. And one thing that I've come to recognize is, a belief system, you know, we might have a religious belief system, we might have a societal belief system, political, all of these different philosophical, spiritual, all of these different systems, but they become integrated, right? They overlap often. And people ask me what's the difference between that and values. And if you think of it in the most simple form, beliefs are, I like to say, our assumptions about the world, but what we believe to be true, which end up being assumptions. And values are more, what we assign importance to. So our values often support our beliefs, maybe a pillar to a belief or a system of beliefs, but beliefs can change. They can be fluid, right? As you were saying, we don't stop and look at them. And yet we may have a dream or a desire or a goal or a vision for our life, but that limiting belief, like I can't be an author, would stop us from writing the book. Or I'm not good enough to be published, would stop us from submitting the writing to be, or the fear of judgment, right, would hold us back. So those limiting beliefs, assumptions, all of those things would hold us back. And as you were saying, so here we are with this belief system that hasn't been reevaluated or aligned with those goals, values, visions, and dreams. So I think of it in the most simple form when I'm talking to clients. It's like your tires on your car. You got to you take them in every now and then. You have them balanced and aligned, right? So that the ride is smooth on the road to wherever you're going. So we want to take our beliefs every now and then and make sure they're in aligned with our goals. So at the end of the day, it's we've got to do exactly what you said. We got to check in on them every now and then and say, are my beliefs aligned? If they're not, why or why not? Right? So where do our beliefs come from, Tracy?
I would say most of them, I mean, you said it, from our past generally. And one of the biggest ones, and you'll hear this a lot with your clients as well, is I am not enough. Wouldn't you say, Anne? If we're talking about limiting beliefs, is when you peel it back, there's the I am not enough belief it's really fueling. And again, a lot of it stems back into childhood. Some of those coping mechanisms, defense mechanisms, trauma responses. So like you said, taking in the alignment, taking in the car, a lot of times that is so under the radar that we don't even recognize, that develops as part of our personality, but then no longer serves us as well, what we believe about ourselves.
Exactly. And that origin, you mentioned trauma, that origin is coming usually somewhere from childhood. And it's something that has to be explored, unearthed, healed, all of those things. It's time for our second break. We're going to come back. We're going to continue this discussion. So, again, don't go far. We'll be back with Tracy and more Soul CPR.
Dr. RC will share extraordinary resources and services that promote educational success, as well as making a difference in the lives of all social workers, as well as the lives of children, adolescents, and teens of today. She will have open discussions addressing many of the issues that we face about our youth and how being employed in the uniquely skilled profession of social work for over 18 years has taught invaluable lessons through her personal experiences. She will also provide real-life facts, examples, and personal stories that will confirm that why serving as a child advocate is extremely beneficial when addressing the needs of the whole child. Listen live to Dare to Soar, Saturdays, 10 a.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network, and tune in radio as Dr. RC will provide thought-provoking information that will empower, encourage, and strengthen students, families, and communities across our nation. You can also visit her at soarwithkatie.com. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them. Rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies. Find settings that allow them to be the most productive and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
And welcome back to Soul CPR. I'm Ann Papayotti, and with me today is my special guest, Tracy McDonald. And we are talking about all things BS, meaning belief systems. And, beliefs are really the lenses through which we see and interpret the world and our experiences and new situations as they arise. And they shape our thoughts, our actions, our behaviors, our mindset about things. And they originate really, through from our upbringing. And that can be influenced through the culture, our education, our religion, society. There's, external, what the kids are experiencing these days with social media. There's all kinds of influences on our belief systems, of course. So we're now going to talk a little bit about, how do our beliefs really affect us or impact our lives? And Tracy's mentioned a little bit about that. So, Tracy, let's expand a little bit about that. So, about the limiting beliefs and that core one we seem to get down to about, not being enough. And when you think you're not enough, how does that impact us, right?
Well, even think about if is it expanding you or is it contracting you? And as you said, when you have that core of not enough, obviously there's that contraction. And I think that's one of the things that our beliefs, really need to be worked on, because when I look at it this way, we're born worthy, we're born deserving, we're born enough, but we learn things differently. So I always say, I'm like, your worthiness, your being enoughness is not on the table. Your potential is right on the table, right? You're either stepping into your potential or you're stepping back, but your worthiness shouldn't be on the table. But somehow we still make it on the table, that we don't feel we're enough. And we, again, learn these behaviors, these limiting behaviors. And especially when we feel it, we actually believe it to be true. And so whenever you're even noticing you're not stepping into your full potential, or noticing that you're, caught into the doubts, pause and even ask yourself, what am I believing about myself right now? How true is it? I think that's when we need to really start becoming not judgy, but curious about ourselves. Like, where is this coming from? And is this true? Is this true for me? And then start practicing a new belief is a big piece, but you need to know what you're believing in that moment in the first place.
Yeah. Beliefs are so powerful. So the way they can impact us, and going beyond, let's go back out bigger first.
Yeah.
Beliefs affect our lives in that they cause arguments, right? If we believe differently than someone else and we're not accepting that someone can believe differently than us, I mean, we've seen that play out in the political arena. We see it play out, wars begin because of different beliefs. Just discord in general. Mental health is impacted and affected by our beliefs, right? These limiting beliefs. So coming back down to, like you said, I couldn't be a writer. There was a whole movement about for Black women thinking about being told they didn't have a dancer's body. And so those who through that barrier to become the ballerinas is what I'm speaking of, the ballerina dancers. And what a beautiful breakthrough that was, to say that they had all the same talent, all the same, and now they're on stage, on toe point, dancing in the classic ballet arena. So what a beautiful thing. But there was this belief for so long that a Black woman couldn't be a ballerina, not the same body type. So what a beautiful thing. Somebody has to break through once to give an example to others, it seems, for people to then follow suit. So these beliefs are passed on, sometimes within families, right? Within generations, again, within cultures. And so we inherit beliefs often, and we carry them with us until we, as you said, challenge them. So beliefs being so powerful, you've started alluding to it. How do we go about changing them to empower us? You mentioned a few things, but they're so powerful. Change can't be easy, can it?
You know what? It's bingo. I mean, sometimes a belief you can change it just like that. Meaning, if you get some kind of new experience or new piece of information, and then you just you have your eyes opened and the belief is just done, right? You can change it on the moment. But for other deeply ingrained beliefs, like the I'm not enoughness, I mean, that's hardwired. So that needs to be practiced. That new belief needs to be practiced. So it's kind of like going to the gym. You don't do one set of abs and one set of crunches and expect abs the next day. It really takes practice in building a new neural pathway in the brain, and to recognize it's going to take time. And it's also shifting your focus. How do you collect evidence for that new belief you want to believe as well? So it's giving yourself grace through that process. But the first thing,
and I love
oh, sorry. go. I was just going to say is you have to take responsibility that I want to change it, which is the theme of our book, and the awareness.
That's it. And I love, you also mentioned earlier, the open-minded or curious. I love an open-minded and curious approach to why you had that belief in the first place. And when you can recognize the source of the belief and then challenge it, right?
Yeah.
And then challenge. It allows us to sort of transcend those boundaries that have kept us within that limitation, right? So that we can start breaking free. So I love that. And yes, that responsibility, which is the theme of our book, is to take personal responsibility for the change that you need to see. And because the choice is there. Our tagline of our book is discover the key within to unlock your best life, because it's there. It's there for us to unlock. So I love that. I'm glad you brought that up. So do you have a personal or a client success story that you can share about being able to make a change in belief systems?
Well, let's go back to the book, right? I mean, that was a huge shift people kept saying to me, you should write a book, write a book. You said the same thing, Tracy, we should write a book. And I'm not joking. Like, it was so like, I am not a writer. Like, as soon as she would mention it, I would shut it down. And so, but as you said, which is bizarre because I was creating content for years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I worked on in belief systems before I had that intuitive hit, that gift to shift, personal stories, all of that. But what I was working on is that belief system that I needed to know the how of something before I started it. So I had to change that. Sometimes I don't know the how, but I need to trust that I will figure it out. So that was a belief system I was working on. And so it's, again, to recognize sometimes we believe things that, like, for example, you shouldn't fail at something. Meanwhile, sometimes failing is part of success. It's to really look at the belief systems. And so coming back to the book, it was busting through that I had to say, I don't know how to write a book, but I'm going to trust I'm going to figure it out. So it was keep building evidence until it was actually in her hand, And I must say that beautiful cover was by Anne, by the way. I just put out to the universe, I want something beautiful with a gift on it. And Anne's like, look what I designed. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's gorgeous. Better than I pictured. So, there's a synchronicity. Yes.
Thank you. That was figuring it out as I went to, but it was a lot of fun to do. I think and you would agree that we find a lot of clients just get stuck in thought patterns, right? They just get stuck in certain beliefs and thought patterns that continue to block them. And so often it's first identifying that there is a limiting belief, because I don't think they first believe that. They don't believe there's a limiting belief.
No.
And so it's coming to that realization. And that's one of the beautiful things I think of the coaching process, is that we help people identify and then release these types of things. And it's just a natural process that happens in coaching. And it's so freeing for people when they realize, oh my gosh, I just thought that was who I am. Or, I didn't realize they'd made it part of their identity. And it really was not right. So again, beliefs can change. Look, the world is constantly changing. The world is literally shifting beneath our feet. We have to always be shifting as well. And to recognize, again, going back to what Tracy said earlier, we have to always be checking in with our beliefs, making sure, again, like the metaphor with the car and the tires, about make sure your beliefs are in alignment with your goals, values, and vision. You've got to know who you are. And that's a lot of work we do in coaching too, is helping people figure out who they are so that they can then figure out where they want to go, what they want to do, and really then tap into their fullest potential. So it's all connected. And when you change a belief, and this is one, some of the thought leaders about belief systems will talk about, it's sometimes because they're interconnected, these belief systems don't operate in silos. It will make shifts in other areas. And sometimes that changes relationships in people's lives because it's so deeply rooted in other areas of life. And so it can be scary. And so people will resist sometimes, but then that limits them, right? The fear of change. So there are more things to work on and work through. So sometimes it's not super easy because of the connection and the origin. And that's why it's important to go back and find the source of the belief and what it's rooted in and connected to, so that there can be a shift that is meaningful and sustainable for the client.
I think
Right.
it's exploring the thoughts, because the thoughts, because the thoughts create the feelings and the feelings create the actions. So when you're feeling contracted, when you're thinking thoughts that just aren't serving you, then it's linking it back, as you said, being compassionate and curious and really exploring what is going on, what am I believing, so that again, is it taking you away from your full potential or just who you want to be and aligning with that? Or are you getting stuck in a BS story that doesn't serve you? But a lot of times we don't even recognize it. And I'm going to tell you, and I'm sure the same thing with you, Anne. So much that goes unconscious that we have no idea makes our decisions and how we show up, and we just think it's part of who we are.
Exactly. So again, beliefs can be catalysts for growth or barriers, right, to success. And so it's being able to choose and to change and to get in alignment so that you can move towards your best life. Because I think a lot of times we hear we have to get out of our own way. And this is one of those situations, I would say, is in our beliefs. It's time for our last break. And when we come back, we're going to wrap this up with some final thoughts and tips with Tracy. So come back and join us for the closing segment. We'll see you in a few.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Mike Zorek, a 3-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a 6-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2 thirds, and 2 fourths. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorek, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorek has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network.
Welcome back to Soul CPR. Tracy McDonald is here with me today, my co-author of The Gift of Shift. We're talking about belief systems and their power to either hold us back or move us forward. And I was thinking about a client, Tracy, that I've been working with who I'm kind of trying to reverse engineer some things for her because she's sort of living out a self-fulfilling prophecy from some limiting beliefs. And it's very much, I'm too shy to present to a proposal. I'm I, I'm not qualified enough, and this woman has her master's degree in like DEI and everything. Um, I worry too much. I've had anxiety my whole life. I'll never heal from this. These kinds of things, right? So reverse engineering, the self-fulfilling prophecy is she's thinking she just doesn't her within her the career of choice, that she should just do this other thing she does, which is she's an exercise instructor. And then she tells me she's not attractive enough to do that. And people, somebody didn't like her in her class. And then we challenged that truth. There was one person that was a complainer about everybody, and everybody else was thanking her for subbing and how much fun they had. So we're always having to, but she goes back into that trauma wound from childhood that you mentioned earlier. She goes back. But the self-fulfilling prophecy, she won't follow the career path that is her dream, her vision, her goal. She won't follow it. So this self-fulfilling prophecy is happening. So she's remaining shy. She's remaining lacking confidence. She's remaining, um, anxious about that. And so we're reverse engineering it. And what we're doing, the tools we're using are affirmations, visualization. So it's sort of the, dress for the job you want, not the job you have, fake it till you make it mindset. The affirmations are, I am confident, I am worthy, I am all those things. And one of your chapters in the book is about that, right? Is it mirror, mirror, where you're the I am.
Mirror Mirror is more about the emotions that come up, and what we, about the emotions. If I say this to myself, I'm going to feel this, right? I could feel like a victim. If I say, I can't believe they said that, let's go, and I'll put on the boxing gloves. So it's, as you said, what am I believing in that moment will impact how I show up. And people don't even make that connection, is what you say to yourself and what you're believing in the moment. And you said something very important about the trauma response. It comes like a self-fulfilling prophecy. One of the things about trauma, what it does, according to, Dr. Gabor Mate, I've been doing training with him, is it disconnects us from the present moment. So we keep regurgitating these emotions and these experiences and disconnect from what's actually being presented in us. And we get stuck in those belief systems that have been frozen in time, basically back then. And so it's what you're saying is, how do we connect back to who we are, practice a new neural pathway, build that, and again, really get clear, so where they're getting stuck in their own BS. Like even how you said about challenging, that was one person, but she believed something about herself. That was just one. It was nothing personal. Right. But we,
Exactly.
as children, we can't we don't think of that, but we take something as truth. And that's where it's so important to challenge it.
Yeah. So, and I feel like the reverse engineering of a self-fulfilling prophecy to make it is going to be the positive beliefs. So turning the negative beliefs, the limiting beliefs, into limitless beliefs. How can we make her limitless in that, and moving her beyond that trauma response and all of that. So we're doing that work now, and I love that. So thank you for sharing that. So, and there's, that just reminds me, there's a commercial right now on TV. Dan, you may have seen this. I don't know if it's showing in Canada, but Snoop Dogg is doing a commercial with like our Olympic athletes, the gymnasts specifically, where he's making them do affirmations about, to prepare them for the upcoming Olympics. And it's really cool. And he's making them visualize, and say these things. But visualization and seeing yourself successful, and I know we've talked about this before as well, Tracy, is key also to success, and believing that you can succeed, being able to see it come to fruition is a tool that I know is very helpful. and mindfulness, meditation. There are lots of tools that we all use, and Tracy and I are both NLP practitioners, and we use that that's neurolinguistics programming for those who are unfamiliar with the acronym, and we use that in our practices to help people as well. So, what's the big takeaway, Tracy, that you would hope listeners get from today's episode?
Ooh, I would say challenge it. Challenge beliefs. If you just challenge your thinking in general, because a lot of times you're not like, oh, that's a belief, but challenge your own thinking. You will know by the way you feel, right? If you feel contracting or that certain emotions, start recognizing and listening to what are you thinking, and also then go even deeper within that. What must I be believing, about me or about the situation? Like, start really becoming open and aware. Kind of goes back to, noticing life. How's it speaking to you? Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I love that so much. And how can listeners connect with you?
You can connect through all the different social media platforms. I see it pop up, tracymaccoaching.com. That is my website. My email is tracy@tracymaccoaching.com. You can find me on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. So yeah, we'd love to hear if you had a question from today or anything shifty, reach on out.
Shifty or any BS, you can reach out to Tracy,
BS.
and we will.
Bring on the BS.
We'll have all of our social media connections and all in the show notes. And tell them how they can get a copy of our book, The Gift of Shift.
Totally. It's at Chapters for your Canadian peeps. Chapters on all online platforms, pretty much all major online platforms. You can Google The Gift of Shift, and I'm sure it will pop up. Amazon is a big one. I would say that's one of the bigger ones that people tend to go to. And that is where you can find us. Yeah.
Perfect. Absolutely. Well, for everyone today, as we're coming to the conclusion of this episode of Soul CPR, first I want to thank Tracy for being my guest today and for sharing her insights and wisdom on BS. And we just love to say that because it's something that people have to sort through in our line of work, and we enjoy helping them get through that mess. And Tracy, thank you. Dan, thank you for keeping us on the air. Just remember that beliefs are not static, that they are fluid, and we want you to take the time to realign, reassess as you go through life. You don't have to be stuck. You do have a choice in life. And remember, as I always say, that healing is not a linear process. It is a profound, transformative journey. And if anything that we shared today resonates with you and you believe it could help someone else, please share this episode and go on and like, subscribe, and rate it so that we can reach more hearts. We greatly appreciate it. And you can connect with me as always at skyviewcoaching.com. And there's my QR code for those who are watching, and you can scan that, and there's a link to the book there as well. And you can connect with me on all the social media channels as well, and those will be in the show notes. So, I like to sign off by saying that I just encourage you all to, to live fully. I want to love openly, live soulfully. I may have mixed up those words today, but you get the essence. And so until next time, Soul CPR to all.
This has been Soul CPR with host Ann Papayotti. Breathe life back into your spirit with each episode, where she and special guests explore the relationships that hurt us and discover that healing can only begin with you. Tuesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.